have listened to your lecture. It's very interesting, your experience and your concept about the true. You have talked about philosophy concept. Why have you beginning with this reflection?
Because people can come and listen and accept what they hear. They can maybe believe me or not believe me. It's up to each individual, each person to decide, is this enough evidence? Is this enough evidence for me to fully accept the reality that we are being visited by extraterrestrials? This is very difficult for most people, very difficult. The reason I started with that is because it's important now that more and more people think about this subject. And in order to accept it rather than simply say, oh, that's interesting, I'm not sure. If people study the subject and use this philosophy or reasoning, they can come to the conclusion that it is real. There's no question. The evidence is overwhelming. The evidence, there's so much evidence to show the reality. That's why I wanted people to understand the process of truly believing in the reality of this phenomenon. Yeah.
So you say you think about a connection between the human being thought and the reality, the evidence. There is some connection between the evidence and the thought of people now.
You see, what happens is the media talks about this, in Washington, in the newspapers. They discuss it on television, and people say, "Oh, that's interesting," but then they go on to another story. But this is so important. This is a very important story that we have to find a way for more people to really say, "Yes, we want answers. We want answers. We need to know what the government knows. We need more information." So in order to get to that point where there's a public cry for information, we have to have more people think about the evidence, the actual evidence of the reality of the UFO.
Your experience have changed your way of thinking about life?
Yes. My experience from studying this for over 25 years now, I'm convinced of the reality, truly convinced in my heart this is real. So I have to fight for the truth of how civilization can survive, let's say, with nuclear weapons. We have to eliminate nuclear weapons. So that's how it's changed my life. I am very strongly for the elimination of all nuclear weapons. And so I'm committed to that.
We believe too, it's very important. Now we talk about UAP and not much more UFO. What is the difference? Is the same thing or is an evolution, UAP of UFO? Is an evolution?
No, it's the same thing. It's just a polite way for, let's say, the government, the U.S. Navy, saying unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP. They don't want to use the word UFO because then if they use the word UFO, they have to acknowledge the history. All of the history, like I said, going back to 1947, where it was called first flying saucers and then UFOs, and now they're using a polite term called UAP. It's the same thing. It's the same phenomenon. They don't want to acknowledge that this is very possibly an extraterrestrial presence on Earth.
You think that extraterrestrial presence are here on our Earth now?
Absolutely, no question. No question. These objects can do things that our engineers cannot construct aircraft or flying objects that can do what they can do. And the occupants inside, the extraterrestrials, are able to take up to 500 G making those turns. We can't do that. We can't do that. So they must have some other method of survival, some other method of propulsion for the objects that we don't know about. But our government is keeping these secrets. They know much more than we do, and it's important that we get our governments to acknowledge the truth.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to have listened to you because your philosophy about the evidence of UFO or UAP is the same thing. Is very, very ahead. Is very, very updated instead of the next time, you know. The next generation must to think like you do. I am very glad that you have this kind of philosophy and you are a researcher like this. All the research have to be like you, have a philosophy concept about this. It's very important for humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.